Well, welcome into the DFS Jags PGA Golf Show. I'm Tony Altieri. That is Riku Mukherjee. Rick, what's going on, man?
What is up, my man? It's been a couple weeks since we talked.
Yeah, so we took a week off from the show. The Mexico Open, the John Rahm Open officially. I think that's what we're going to call it from now on. The odds-on favorite. Everybody was picking to win. Said if he showed up and he played the way that he has been playing, that he would win. And all of that stuff came true. It didn't stop you and I from playing, DraftKings or from having bets. And I guess you could arguably say we had success, even though we didn't hit a winner.
Man, it's been a brutal few weeks. I feel like our process is so on point, but we just can't find the winner circle the last few weeks. We've had runner-up finishes at RBC Heritage and Horschel and Burns at Zurich, and then last week we had multiple runner-up finishes with Finau and Kitayama, and I had a big bet on Champ, and oh man, just can't find the winner circle. But I feel like we're doing everything correctly. It's just one of those lull, ice cold periods where we just can't find the winner.
Yeah, I guess to add insult to injury, for us to have basically outright bets between the three of us, we had outright bets on all three of the guys that finished T2 and 7 of the players inside the top 10. So obviously we didn't bet Rahm at 3.5 to 1, 5 to 1, whatever he ended up going off on, just because those aren't numbers that you and I play. And, again, everybody said if Rahm shows up and plays any semblance close to how he has been playing, which hasn't been great, but that if he showed up and was actually trying to win, not on vacation, that he should walk away with it. That's exactly what happened. All of the narratives, I think, that were out there within the community about this being a bomber's paradise and being a score fest and being able to hit fairways, like all of that stuff came true. Mayao on his show, he pointed out that if you just had sorted by driving distance going into the tournament, you basically were able to identify like 70% of the guys inside the top 25.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, I feel like it was I feel like Rahm didn't play the greatest and he still won the tournament. But I also feel on the other end, I also feel like if Tony Finau just knew how to make a 4-foot putt on Friday, he literally had like 4 feet to 7 feet putts that he missed on Friday. And at that point I had him in like my main DraftKings lineup, and I was just like, just make the cut, Tony, just make the cut. Yep. I didn't even think that he would, come T2 or whatever, but the guy missed so many putts on Thursday and Friday. And then he found his putter on the weekend and ended up backdooring a T2. And that was pretty frustrating. But yeah, I mean, big win for John Rahm. His first win since the US Open last year. I think this was a good week for him to, I guess, a kind of like a get right week where he just comes in as the odds on favorite, beats the field and in a tournament that, in reality, he should win. He's head and shoulders better than who is the second favorite in the tournament according to DraftKings prices, which is Tony Finau. So I don't know. My friend made a funny comment and was like, the drop off from John Rahm to Tony Finau is like the drop off from Josh Allen to Josh Rosen. And I was like, I don't know if it's that significant, but it's a tournament that John Rahm should have definitely won. And he put it together and he got his I think 7th or 8th win on PGA Tour. So good win.
Yeah, I mean, it was an exciting tournament. It played out the way everybody thought. I mean, Finau basically backdooring a T2 was the most Finau thing he's done in probably the last 3 or 4 years. So it's good to see signs of life from him, being a Tony Finau guy. I like him. I root for him. So it's good to see him kind of get off the slide and start playing, I guess, like we're used to seeing Tony and Finau play. And of course, his odds go right back to 18 to 1 the very next week, which makes him unbettable again. But, the big thing is, did you know there were 3 guys that shot in the 60s all 4 days? Obviously, John Rahm was one of them. Do you know who the other 2 guys were that shot in the 60s all 4 days last week?
Kitayama? No, he didn't shoot in the 60s on Sunday.
Kitayama, he posted a 70 on Friday. I'll give you one more guess, and then I'll give you the 2 guys. And you guys are actually pretty significant this week.
I don't know. I can't even think of who shot 4 rounds in the 60s last week.
Okay, so the other 2 guys were Davis Riley, who finished T5 at 15 under. He had 4 rounds in the 60s. And then David Lipsky, who got better every single day.
Your boy.
Yeah, Lipsky. who I've been riding the Lipsky train all year, hoping that he would show up and win a tournament. And he finally showed up and played really, really well. I don't like him as much this week because of the course setup. It's a completely different style. But, those were the only 3 guys that shot in the 60s all 4 days. You mentioned Finau. Other than basically posting, I think he shot 71 on Thursday. I mean, he had a great tournament. He shoots 63 on Sunday. Him and Brandon Wu both shot 63 on Sunday, and both guys, when the conditions were the worst, fairways were the hardest to hit, the course was playing a little bit firmer, a little bit faster, both those guys lit it up. So that is something to keep an eye on.
Did you like that course?
I want to play the course.
Yeah, so I do too.
It's probably not very difficult if I want to go and play that course.
Yeah.
But again, I tend to like courses where guys can score, where we can see guys hit shots. And so I enjoyed it. I get the whole, tough course, US Open, PGA Championship. Like that's entertaining for me to see 3-4 times a year. I don't want to watch that week in and week out. I don't want to watch guys shoot, 1 under +1 to win a tournament. I like where guys can go low and have birdie fests. It's great to see because I want to watch the best players in the world basically lighting courses up. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I like the course. I'm kind of excited to go back there. I think they have a 3-year contract, so that's going to be a tournament for the next couple of years. So I definitely liked it. I thought it was a nice, beautiful course on the water, and it's kind of a resort course with wide open fairways. So it's one of those situations where it's like it was tough because it was a long course, but it was also it was a very scoreable course. So I definitely am looking forward to next year, and just got to keep in mind, write it in your notes that just play bombers, man. Just play guys driving distance. So that's the way to go with that tournament, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, other notable things kind of happening in and around golf. And of course, just as we kind of transition into the Wells Fargo this week, this basically marks 4 straight weeks going back to the Masters, where basically you can make an argument that the best guy or the best team in the field ended up winning. Scottie Scheffler wins the Masters, #1 player in the world. Jordan Spieth wins the RBC Heritage, and you can make an argument that Jordan Spieth, at least from a pedigree standpoint, like a long-term form standpoint, Jordan Spieth was the best player in the field. He wins that tournament. The Zurich, you can say, Morikawa, Hovland, Cantlay, Schauffele. I mean, they're neck and neck.
Right.
Cantlay and Xander win that tournament. Jon Rahm wins the Mexico Open. And then, of course, here we are at the Wells Fargo.
So you're saying Rory's going to win this week.
And Rory McIlroy is head and shoulder best player in the field. Obviously, for anybody that's been paying attention at all, the Wells Fargo is being played at a totally different course. It's not at Quail Hollow because Quail Hollow is hosting the President's Cup this year. And so they've switched venues. It's in your old backyard.
My neck of the woods, man. I love this course. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm curious. You said you've never played the course before, but you've walked it and been there before. What's your impression of the course? Is it tree lined? Is it difficult? What kind of things kind of stand out for you at this track?
It's difficult. It's not an easy course. It's very tree lined. You cannot spray your driver whatsoever. If you spray your driver, you're in deep shit. So it's one of those courses where you have to, accuracy is key here. One of my best friends growing up, he actually used to live on, I think it was like the 11th or 12th hole. So I would see, whenever I would go to his house, we would go out in his backyard and just like literally watch, like his house was like in the middle, like right where like the drives would land from the members, and we would watch these guys hit approach shots like all the time. And it's a nice course. It's difficult, but then at times it can be easy, I guess, if there's no weather, and it's it's not a long course, of course. It's a pretty gettable short course, but you have to be accurate. If you don't have accuracy and you're spraying your driver like I don't know, what's a good example? Cam Davis. If you're spraying your driver like Cam Davis can and tends to do, he's going to struggle this week. But on top of that, I like Cam Davis this week.
I know. I don't want to get into it too quick, but I'm a huge Cam Davis guy. I like him a lot this week. I see a lot of corollaries to where he won at the Rocket Mortgage last year between this course and that course. But that's besides the point. By the numbers, this is the shortest course to par on tour. And coincidentally, to mention some of the points that you hit on, it is also the most difficult course by the numbers to hit fairways at on the PGA Tour. So
Yeah.
it's a short course. It's one that demands accuracy off the tee. And of course, if you look back to 2017 and 2018, when they played the Quicken Loans here, the guys that won, Kyle Stanley and Francisco Molinari, not known to be long drivers of the golf ball off the tee, but absolutely accuracy mavens. The most accurate driver on tour who does not hit it very far at all, Ryan Armour, finished T2 in 2018 here. And so TPC Potomac is our venue. It's a par 71, basically 7,150 yards. Last year, this course was not in rotation. The Wells Fargo was played at Quail Hollow, which is in a completely different state. I think it's in North Carolina. And so Rory McIlroy is our defending champion. And so some of the things that you brought up, Rick, and that we've been talking about, strokes gained off the tee and approach will be huge. We want ball strikers this week. Fairways gained are paramount. If you are not in the short stuff, the rough is bad, and the tree-lined fairways will absolutely gobble up golf balls. So we want guys that can put it in the middle of the fairway. Opportunities gained. We want people that can get up and down and score. We don't want guys, to your point, to spray the golf ball, to miss these very, very small greens. Par 4 scoring. There's only 2 par 5s on the course. And so par 4 scoring.
And they're both hard too. They're not easy.
They're
par 5s.
Extremely long. And eagle rates are some of the lowest on the PGA Tour for both holes. And so we expect, right, everyone does, that people are going to club down, hit less than driver. So that means longer approach shots into these very small greens. So key proximity from 175 to 200, the most common distance for guys playing this course. And we want guys that can get up and down from that distance. I guess that takes us, Rick, right into the top of the board for DraftKings this week. And of course, you mentioned it off the hop, Rory McIlroy. I think there's a similar argument to what we went through, at least in our discussions last week with John Rahm. Like, do you take Rory or do you not? And most people ended up taking John Rahm. He was, in some cases, 40, 50% owned in a lot of tournaments.
The highest anyone's ever been owned in a main slate ever was like 45% for John Rahm last week.
Which is insane. Yeah. And while I don't think Rory's going to get to the same level, I think the same narrative and I guess value proposition people are going to have to make this week. Do you play Rory McIlroy at 11.5, $1,000 more basically than the next guy in the field, or do you decide to fade him this week?
That's a good question. It's actually to be completely honest with you, it's a two-person question in this 10K range, because looking at ownership projections as of today, it's looking like Rory and Corey Connors are both, that's where all the ownership is gravitating towards. So there's no way that you can play Rory and Corey Connors in the same GPP lineup, because if you do, you're literally starting off your lineup with already 50% total ownership. So you're gonna have to fade one. And if you want to be different, you can fade both. Obviously, if you start your lineup with Finau, Answer, or Fitz, you're going to be different. But if you decide that you want to start your lineup with either Rory or Corey Connors, you're going to have to decide which one you want to go with. And if I'm going to go with one of those guys, I think I have to go with Rory with how good he played at the final round at the Masters. This course seems like it's perfect for Corey Connors. And the $1,400 ownership price discount seems appealing, but I just feel like if Rory shows up and plays peak Rory and he's able to hit fairways, he's gonna win this tournament.
Yeah.
Oh, you're muted.
About that, I think most people are probably going to end up on Corey Connors, right? Just because of the discount and the pricing, and then of course all the narratives around what he does well, right? The long-term Corey Connors, he's a guy that absolutely stripes the ball. He hits fairways. His, strokes gain approach is phenomenal. And it is a good point that one of the viewers brought up here about Connors and him losing strokes around the green. Connors typically is on team no putt firmly, and his around the green game tends to bounce around. I would say that the around the green game this week is probably going to be somewhat mitigated. And the only reason why I say that is if you're not hitting greens and not hitting fairways, I think you're going to find yourself out of contention very, very quickly. And so I'm willing to take the risk of Connors and the fact that he's not a great around the green game guy. But he's phenomenal off the tee and he's phenomenal on approach. And I'm just hoping that he has one of those weeks like he has every year or two where he has a spike putting week. And if he chips around the green, at least at field minimum, I think you're going to end up with a high return. Whether or not he wins, that's a really good question. His number kind of floated anywhere between 20 and 30, depending on what your book is and where you're at. And so there's some value there. And he's just got so much steam and so much ownership going into this week. I can't believe I'm going to do it, but I think I will be fading Corey Connors in DraftKings. I'm still on the fence on whether or not I'm going to have a bet on him at the end of the day. I'm really waiting to see last minute how the site that I can actually book him at ends up with his number. But I think I'm going to fade him because the ownership is so strong, and I'm going to end up going to some chalkier guys down the board, and I can't have Corey and those guys in my lineup.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Waking Up, for the question. If you aren't already subscribed to Nickel City Mafia, please subscribe to the channel. We do this every week. Yeah, like he said, his question with Connors here is do we have concern with Connors around the green game? Not really, man. Corey Connors, like Tony was just saying, his tee to green game is what we are betting on when we bet on Corey Connors. But the thing for me here is that you're paying the extra $1,400 to Rory McIlroy because of the win equity. I think because between these guys, we know who the win equity belongs to, and it's Rory McIlroy. The guy's won, 20 times on tour or something like that, and Corey Connors only has one career win. So I'm going to eat the chalk probably with Rory. I don't like Finau or Answer in this range. I just don't like Answer, period. I never play him, and just this price is unreal. 10-4 for Answer just seems like way too much. And then Tony Finau, you need to play Tony Finau at wide open courses like last week where he can spray his driver. So I don't think that fits well. The guy I do like in this range is Fitz. I think this is a good setup for Fitz for his accuracy, his tee to green game, his prowess around the greens and on the greens, his best putting surface is bent. I definitely am going to play a lot of Fitz this week. He's going to be my pivot up here. So I think for me, my two guys up here are Rory and Fitz. And then I'm probably going to fade the other three guys here.
Yeah, what's interesting about Fitzpatrick, you look at his recent results, he missed a cut at the Heritage, which is obviously fresh in a lot of people's minds because he set up so well, at least statistically, for what that course demands and what he does well. But the two places that he's missed the cut, the Players and the RBC Heritage here recently, were both tournaments where he lost 3 strokes putting, which is that's out of form for a guy like Fitzpatrick. He is a putting maven. That's one of the skill sets and why you play him. And so I'm willing to throw those two out as outliers. Obviously, the Players with the wind draw was a massive disadvantage for a number of guys who are on the wrong side of that. So, if you can overlook what happened to him at the Heritage and say, look, it's very rare that Matthew Fitzpatrick is going to, basically bleed 3 strokes on the green. All of the other things that we've talked about off the tee and approach, he's very, very good. He's actually sneakily long while being accurate at the same time. I think the course fit is phenomenal. The only place that I'm going to differ with you above $10,000 is at Answer. I've always been an Answer guy. And I think
he has not been good this year, man. Even when he was healthy, he's been playing.
He hasn't. But here's what I would say is I going into the break where he basically withdrew from a bunch of tournaments because of the injury. Obviously, he was dealing with something, and so he wasn't playing well. We just didn't recognize it until he withdrew. And then he ends up playing in the Mexico Open at a course where all of us were like, this doesn't really fit him, right? This is not the right course set up for a guy like Abraham Answer. This is a completely different type of course, and I'm willing to take the risk for what I've seen recently and take the long-term form with Answer this week. He's a guy that hits fairways. You go back to 2018, what he did here at the Quicken, I think he finished top 5. So I'm willing to roll the dice there on Answer, both in DraftKings and as a bet this week. And if it burns me, it burns me. But I'm hoping that I can be early back into the Abraham Answer market because I do think long-term he's going to get back to his stride and will be one of the best players, on the planet again soon. He's a top 20 golfer in the world, in my opinion. He's not playing like that right now, but I think he just needs to get off the injury snide, and we could see that player come back.
All right. Well, good luck with that.
I appreciate the vote of confidence, Rick.
I just can't get there. 10-4 for Abraham Answers is way too much. I'd rather go to Finau, to be completely honest with you. But I'll stick with Fitz and Rory in this range for me.
Yep, and I'll say I'm going to go with Answer and probably Fitzpatrick as well too. I just like both guys. The core setup is there. We drop down below 10K to the $9,000 range. A number of familiar names, and obviously we've got some guys that have been playing well as of recently, and a bunch of guys that are kind of all over the board. Leishman and Reed have not been very good. Obviously, Reed had a good week last week, but a vast majority of that was done on the greens. He did have a pretty good week off the tee, which he's been abysmal all year. But also in this range, Russell Henley, Keegan Bradley, Terrell Hatton, and of course, our boy, Gary Woodland. I think Woodland finds his way onto my card each and every week. But I love Woodland this week in this range. And then, of course, Keegan rates out really, really well. I just don't know with the way that I'm building lineups this week if I'm going to be able to fit, either two of these guys into a lineup or, whatever. So I'm going to see how ownership kind of breaks down as we get into tomorrow. But right now, my early lean is Woodland. And then Keegan would probably be the guy on the outside of that. Hatton is interesting, though. I think, when you're playing the volatility narrative, when you look at a guy comparing like Russell Henley to Terrell Hatton, and you said, who's the better guy, right? It's obvious, at least in my mind, that Terrell Hatton is the better player. But the range of outcomes for Terrell Hatton is like this, and the range of outcomes for Russell Henley is like this.
Yeah.
So you've got a really high floor on Russell Henley, but you've also got a really low ceiling, in my opinion, compared to Terrell Hatton. Hatton could miss the cut. He could win the tournament. Henley's probably going to finish somewhere between, P40 and T20. So it just depends how you want to build your lineups and what you're looking for in the 9K range. Are you looking for stability or looking for upside? For me, I would probably end up erring on the upside with Hatton. So I think that's how it would go for me in here. Woodland, Keegan Bradley, and then Hatton.
Okay. Yeah. From an ownership perspective, it looks like it's similar to the 10K range where there's just two guys soaking up all the ownership. And that's going to be Keegan and Russell Henley soaking up all the ownership in this range. There's just no way in hell I could ever get to a chalky 9,600 Keegan Bradley. I just can't do it. It's just not in my blood. I could potentially get to a chalky Russell Henley, but I honestly like the other guys in this range more. I like Hatton. I like Leishman. I don't like Reed. We're not even going to talk about Patrick Reed and stuff. But Leishman and Hatton, if you take out the Masters this year, man, which is a course that Hatton has pretty much publicly said that he just has no idea how to play Augusta. He's been phenomenal this year. His game this year, his finishes this year have been really solid. So definitely like Hatton. Leishman's a great pivot off of Keegan, especially with Leishman's history here. He played both years for the Quicken Loans, and he had a 13th place finish and a 5th place finish. So definitely like Leishman in this situation. And like you said, Gary Woodland, I love him this week. At a course where he can club down, which is always something that we like with Gary Woodland, where he can take driver out of his hand and he can hit 3-wood and then work his magic on the rest of the holes. So I definitely like Hatton, Leishman, and Woodland here. I'm probably going to fade chalky Bradley, chalky Henley, and I'm just not even interested in Patrick Reed.
Yeah, it's interesting with Leishman. He rates out really well this week. His form has been pretty good, and statistically, right, the things that we've identified in terms of the key stats for the week, he rates out pretty high, obviously top 25 in that. And so he's coming in, 16 overall. But it's really weird because I have a ton of difficulty playing Mark Leishman. It seems like I'm always on the wrong side of the weeks when Mark Leishman plays well and when he plays absolute garbage. Really similar to Terrell Hatton, I think the range of outcomes for Leishman is really, really wide. And so I can't get there. So if I'm going to throw my hat in the ring on a guy who could, miss the cut by 5 strokes or win the thing, and those two options are Leishman and Hatton, I'm probably going to end up being more leaning towards Hatton. And Keegan is the other one, right? Like, because when we talk about like the prototypical guy for this course, everybody points to Corey Connors, but all of the things that Connors does and all the things that Connors sucks at are the same things that Keegan are good and sucks at. He's just not as good as Connors, right? He's just a poor man's version of Corey Connors. So obviously, he's getting quite a big bump because the field is pretty soft, and $9,600 is tough to stomach. But in terms of the names in this range, I just can't. I've been fading Russell Henley all year, and I don't feel bad about it at all. Right? Like, I think I had him once, and it was the one time I bet on that he gagged it away in the playoff.
In Sony, at the Sony Open.
Dude, it was heartbreaking. And ever since then, I have not been able to go back, and I don't regret it. I'll be all over Woodland like you. And I think, my Keegan Bradley exposure is really going to come down to how many lineups I end up building. If I end up doing, more than, 20 or 30 lineups, then I might sprinkle some Bradley in. But if that's really where I'm going to stay, where I'm like just going to do like 15 or 20 lineups, he probably won't make my player pool.
Yeah. But like you said earlier, like as far as like Russell Henley goes, like his range of outcomes is like he's going to make the cut. He's going to be in contention, and he's just not going to win. Like he just finishes like top 20 like every week, which is fine, I guess, at 9,300. He always pops in all the stat models. Like, look, he's number 2 overall in your stat rank, but he just doesn't like his upside. He's not going to win. And I would rather go to someone that's a proven winner on tour, like Leishman and Woodland, like people that have won multiple events, instead of a Russell Henley, who I just don't think is going to win. So, yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. I mean, if you're going to, I think part of it is the price point, right? If Russell Henley was, 8,300 or 7,300, he would be probably the most heavily owned guy in the tournament, but he's $9,300. And I think that's a mental barrier to your point. It's like, if I'm taking a $9,300 guy, a guy in the 9Ks, I want to have that guy to have a chance to win. I'm not going to play a guy in the 9Ks who's going to finish T20. Like, I don't want that. So, your return on your investment needs to be much better for a $9,000 guy than a guy, sub that number. But anyways, dropping down into that next tier, in the 8Ks, there are a ton of names here and a bunch of good plays. Oddly enough, probably one of my favorite guys in this range. He rates out the worst. That's Max Homa. I do like Homa a lot. I've always been big on him. So, when it comes to Max and whether or not I bet him or play him in DFS, I don't even look at how he's playing. I know the type of player that he is, and I know where he plays well. This course is a little bit of a wonky fit for him. He's longer off the tee. He typically plays really hard tracks well, which this is a difficult course. But, the fact that it's going to force him to potentially club down, I don't know if I can get there with him this week. The other guys in this range, Casey, Garcia, Siwoo Kim, Seamus Powers, Jason Day, Webb Simpson, Cam Young. Cam Young's probably the guy getting the most steam from people, I think, this week. I've heard basically everybody talk him up. I don't know if in this range, if he's right for me. I know you're a big Cameron Young guy. Is he going to be a key point in your player pool this week?
Is he going to be a key point in my player pool this week? That's an understatement, man. I might lock him in every single lineup. This guy is going to win the tournament this week. Cam Young, I am all in. I'm fading the chalk up top with Russell Henley and Keegan Bradley and Corey Connors, and I'm going to eat the chalk here with Cam Young. The guy is so freaking good. His TD Green game, and he just proved it at RBC a couple weeks ago, where it doesn't matter what course it is. It doesn't have to be a long course. This guy knows how to play golf, and I absolutely love him this week. He's my pick to win this week. He's going to be my one and done pick. I'm going to have a bet on him. So he's my guy this week. And he's coming in, and it makes sense. He's coming in the most chalky in this range. He's coming in around 20%. I'm going to eat that chalk. I'm going to go overweight on him. But yeah, he's my guy here. A couple of the other guys I like here. Oh, before I get to that, let me answer this question here. So Mr. Waking Up with another question says, is it savvy to get contrary to the field and go balanced build? I'm loving the 8K range. Yeah, that's definitely going to be contrarian this week. I feel like most lineups are going to start like Rory Henley or like Connors Bradley or something like that, with like a couple guys up top. So if you want to go balanced and fade the whole 10K range and start with somebody in the 9K range, you're definitely gonna be contrarian to the field in that range. So that's my answer to your question. But real quick, back to who I like in this range besides Cam Young. I know you always love Max Homa, and he's getting a lot of steam this week. I can't get there with him. I'd rather go on. I know it's gross, but I'd rather go to Sergio. He's so
hard to do, dude.
Sergio, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard, but he's so freaking good off the tee, and this is a course where you need to be good off the tee. And I just I like I think I like his off the tee game, and it's going to be enough. Is it just always a question with Sergio? Is it enough? Is he going to make enough putts? And we'll see. But I definitely would rather go to him instead of Homa. I'd rather go to Sergio instead of Casey, who we is a big question mark in this situation, just because coming off of an injury, multiple withdrawals, we just don't know what his situation is. If we get healthy Paul Casey, this seems like a perfect course for him, but I just don't know where he's at. I mean, he could play one round and withdraw if his back flares up. So I'd rather go to Sergio in that upper 8K range. We already know who I love in the lower 8K range. And in the middle here, I kind of like Seamus Power. His game's been coming around the last few weeks. He made it out of the group stages in the WGC match play, and then he killed Hatton in the next round after that. But he's a guy that I feel like this game suits well for him. This course suits well for his game. What do you think about Seamus?
Yeah, Seamus is an interesting one. I think earlier in the year, if you look, where he had his win and where he kind of had a stretch where he was playing really, really well, where things started to change for him. And I remember exactly when it happened. It was at Pebble when he played the third of the 3-course rotation. It was at a track that he absolutely hated. And he publicly said that. I hate this course. I never play well.
Yeah.
And it basically derailed his chances to win at Pebble Beach. But Pebble Beach, in terms of being a short course where it demands accuracy, postage stamp greens, a lot of the same narratives are what we're going to see at Avenel Farms this week. Seamus Powers plays well. So I think when you take driver out of Seamus's hands, I think that benefits him. And so I actually like him better than the two guys above and below him. Obviously, Siwoo Kim's going to rate out really, really well this week in terms of statistically in his form, but not a good bent grass putter. He ranks in the bottom third of the field on bent grass. So that's enough for me to stay away from Siwoo this week. And then Jason D, I just crossed that name off the list. Like, it doesn't even render for me that he's in the tournament. So of the guys in the middle there, I think Seamus Powers is the clear guy that's probably going to garner ownership and the guy that I like the best. I like Homa, like I said, just because of the off the tee game. When you look at what he's done, I think he's missed one cut, and in the one cut that he missed, it was the only tournament where he didn't gain off the tee. So he's a guy that I think has a lot of upside at his price. I think it makes it very interesting. And the other guy I actually like for the reasons that you mentioned is Paul Casey. When he withdrew, the last time that we really saw him playing well was obviously when he lost to Cam Smith, had the worst break of all time in terms of a drive pipe down the middle of the fairway in a terrible divot that basically derailed the tournament for him. But I think it's been enough time now where, we're encroaching on 45, 60 days since he's had the injury. So I feel like there's enough time for him to get back to normal. And again, when we're talking about ball strikers, Paul Casey is the prototypical ball striker. So I'm going to take a risk on Casey this week in the player pool. And probably Seamus Powers is going to be the other guy I use here, and sprinkle in some Max Homa as well, too, depending on lineup constructions.
Yeah, I can see all that. We didn't mention his name at all. I kind of like Webb too a little bit.
Yeah,
I feel like this is a good spot to be early on him. His betting odds is just unbelievable. I've seen him at like 60 or 70 to 1, and this guy's like, when healthy, is like one of the best players in the world. So I usually only like playing Webb at short Bermuda tracks, but this is a short, accuracy laden, bent grass track. So I definitely could see, I could see sprinkling some Webb Simpson in my lineups as well.
Yeah, I know we had a question come across about Jason Day, and it's interesting because, Day has been playing better. But obviously, it's not the Jason Day that won, whatever he did 4 or 5 times in 2017 when he was the best player in the world, head and shoulders. The thing that scares me about Day is both off the tee and with approach, he's basically struggled over the course of the last year. If we look at kind of where he's at just in terms of, his recent finishes, let me pull up his stats here while we're talking and we can go through it real quick. Day is one of those guys where he relies heavily on his short game. I mean, how many times did we see him chip in or drain putts of like 60 feet? And if you look at, what he's done, he's basically he missed a cut at Valero, missed a cut at Valspar, missed a cut at the Players. Pebble Beach was a T24. It's a place that he's played well. It's a short course. Farmer's a place that he's played well. So the places where he's made the cut this year are courses where he's traditionally played very, very strong and had good results. And this place, I just don't know. I'm not even sure if he played.
He doesn't have any history here.
Yeah, so he has no course history here. So for me, Jason Day is probably an easy cross off for me for all those things that I just mentioned. To me, you're going to have to rely so heavily on being able to put the ball in the fairway, and I just don't know if I can depend on Jason Day to do that.
Yeah, I completely agree. He's a cross off for me too, but I'll be completely honest with you. If you can stomach playing him, he is the obvious and clear pivot here. He's coming in sub 5% ownership. So I know what you're saying here. He's due for a cut, but I mean, at 8,200, you're not asking him to just make the cut. You need some cut and some upside too.
Yeah,
it'd be a different story if he was like a flat 7,000 or something. Then yeah, sure. I mean that's definitely more reasonable. But 8,200, I'd rather go to anyone around him. Siwoo, Seamus, Webb, Cam Young, like anyone around him seems like a much better play than Jason Day.
Yeah, no, I do. You spot on, dude. Like if Jason Day was $600 cheaper, if he was $7,600, I think it's worth a roll of the dice. But to your point, at 8,200, you're looking for a guy who you want a guy's going to finish top 15, maybe even contend, put up some good points, and be an anchor player for your lineup. I just worry that there's too many negative things about Day going into this tournament to be able to play him and depend on him at $8,200. So I think it's a price point thing to your point. If he was much cheaper, I could see the roll in the dice, but basically with where he's at now, he's, at least in my opinion, he's unplayable.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's go to the sevens.
Yeah, dropping down into the 7Ks, there is a huge pool of guys. It feels like the 7Ks are much larger this week than they've been in previous weeks. And there's some good plays down here. Matt Kuchar leads off at $7,900, and he's been playing very, very well. He's coming in with 2 top 5 finishes. It feels more like the Matt Kuchar of old. But obviously he's getting much older than he was. Aaron Rai, who's played well, Keith Mitchell, who's played well this year, Brian Harmon, who has course history here and has a significant course fit, Joel Damon, basically everybody in the 7Ks, there is a reason to play these guys, and there is a significant upside in doing that. And what I would say is that I think ownership, because there are so many attractive plays down here, it's going to be sprinkled all over the place. So I think you can kind of pick and choose the guys that you want to enter into your lineups this week. And you won't have to deal with guys being, 15, 20% owned. There probably are some outliers there. And I know, Rick, you've been looking at the ownership, but is there anybody that's creeping up on 15 to 20% in this range?
Definitely not anyone below 7,500. There's a couple names above 7,500 that are not getting to 20%, but are definitely creeping towards 15%. And I'll name them here. First guy that I'm seeing around 15% is Keith Mitchell. The next guy I'm seeing, and you'll love this, is Brian Harmon. People are loving Brian Harmon this week. And then the only other guy that I'm seeing that's creeping towards 15% is Sepp Straka, and that's understandable. The guy's been pretty phenomenal over the last couple months, ever since his win at the Honda. Honda. So those are your guys that are going to be the chalk in this range. No one else is really creeping into that ballpark. So if you're going to fade anyone, those would be the guys to fade as far as an ownership perspective goes. I really like Aaron Rai. I really like what I've been seeing from him over the course of the last month. I think he's kind of due for a win, to be completely honest with you. It feels like a win is coming from him. And I saw he was in the final group at the Farmers, where I followed him around, and that was a tough spot for him because it was his first time being in the final group at a PGA Tour event. And I think since that experience, he's been getting closer and closer to pulling something off. So I definitely like Aaron Rye this week. He's probably going to be on my betting card, to be completely honest with you, which I haven't made yet. I'll tweet it out tomorrow when we get to that segment. But I like Aaron Rye from up here. Man, the guy that I really can't stand anymore, but I still play every freaking week is Kevin Streelman. I literally play him every week, and he just doesn't do anything, man. He just either misses the cut or barely makes a cut, and then just kind of treads water all weekend. He doesn't have any low round potential. But the thing is he played here 2 years, when the Quicken Loans was here, and he finished 32nd and 17. So he has good course history here. So I could go to him again. It's just going to break my heart again. But yeah, I'll go to Kevin Streelman. I'll go to Aaron Rye up here. Above 7,500 above. I'll let you talk about Lipsky. I can go back to Brandon Wu. He showed me something last week. The guy played really well. And his tee to green game looked really, really good. And he could have almost pulled off that tournament if he made eagle on that last hole. Instead, he left it a little short in the bunker. So those will probably be the names. I know a lot of people are talking about Matt Jones this week for an accuracy kind of course where he can get hot. I can see it, and he's kind of low owned too, so I could sprinkle maybe some Matt Jones also. Who do you like up here?
Yeah, we kind of segment it where you get guys 7K and above and below. Oddly enough, I like Kuchar and Rye at the top. I'll probably be sprinkling both of those guys, rotating them into lineups, and if it fits, I'll put both guys in. Kuchar, I think, is a guy that you're going to play at places where he plays well. Kind of the similar narrative that we talked about with Jason Day. It's like there's certain tracks that just suit what he does, and as he's gotten older, he's not as dependable as he was once. 5 years ago, Kuchar was like a staple in lineups for me. I played him every single week because he would make the cut, he would finish inside the top 20, and he's just not that guy anymore. And I think some respects that's kind of where guys like him and Streelman and Lucas Glover, they're kind of reaching the backside of their careers, and it becomes much harder each and every week to kind of maintain that level of professionalism on the PGA Tour when you're getting in your late 40s and early 50s. It's hard to do, and I think that grind is taking a toll on them. And I think the other part of it is the quality of young golfers that are coming up are starting to push a lot of those older guys out. So I think Kuchar is a play this week because of course fit. I also like Ryle out. Like I said, I can't believe I'm going to do it, but I'm going to be playing Brian Harman this week. He's got good course history. Statistically, he rates out fairly well. And again, when you talk about long-term course fit, what he does well, accuracy, that's Brian Harman. That's this course. So I like him. Joel Dahmen's a guy I really like a lot too. A couple of the courses that I'm using for comp courses with this one are Honda, Valspar, and of course the RBC Heritage, and Sepp Straka won at Honda. So Straka will probably end up being in, maybe 50% of my lineups this week. I really like Straka a lot. And then my boy T. Merritt, Boise State's own Troy Merritt. I love Merritt for the same reasons that I like Cameron Davis and the course fit with, I think it's TPC Detroit, where they play the Rocket Mortgage. If you remember, Troy Merritt and Alex Noren were in that playoff with Cam Davis. And by the way, where's Alex Noren? If Noren was going to win a tournament, this would be the one. Accuracy, this is the course. So where the hell is Noren? Anyway. But I like Merritt above us, at 7,500. And then Wu and Lipsky are both really interesting to me as well too. The guy that I was going to ask you about, and he rated out really well in the model, his form is decent coming into this, is the guy that's sandwiched between the names that I just threw out, and that's CT Pan. Pan's a guy, I think he's won the either the Colonial or Heritage before. I can't remember whichever one has the stupid plaid jacket. Anyways, CT Pan you would think would rate out really well, but I've heard nobody talking about CT Pan, and I'm thinking, man, he rates out really well statistically with the key stats for what he does, and his form's decent. And I know his ownership is nothing because nobody ever plays CT Pan.
Yeah, I like him this week. I played him last week in one of my main lineups, so I definitely I definitely like him. He won the Heritage, by the way, the
there you go.
Heritage, which is, kind of similar to this course. You could say it's not as positionally you're looking, but you still need accuracy and good tee to green game. So this could be a good course comp for RBC Heritage. So definitely can see going to some CT Pan. Real quick before we go to the lower sevens, we just wanted to say that don't forget Tony. His model is available to folks if you guys want it. If you guys want Tony's model that you're seeing on the screen here, feel free to reach out to us, DFS Jags or me, and we can email it to you, or we'll post it on Twitter or something like that. But just letting you guys know that the model is available. But yeah, from the dropping down below 7,500. I'm going to go back to Anirban because I play him every week. He's just my boy. He's been playing really well since the players, making cut after cut and doing his thing. So I definitely like him. I can't do it with Ricky, even though I want to do it with Ricky. The guy has a 12th place finish here and a 3rd place finish here. I want to so bad, but I can't do it. That disgusting 144th overall in your model is just gross. Instead, I will go to someone else right at the same exact price range, and that's Adam Long, who has been playing really well recently. His recent finishes, he's been, finishing top 20, top 30 like every week. He had a good week last week. Can definitely play some Adam Long. If we look at the right side of the slide here, I don't really have many names here except for Cam Davis. Even though Cam Davis is one of those guys that loves to spray it off the tee, and that's going to be trouble here. We saw it that at courses where it's short, like RBC Heritage and wherever the Rocket Mortgage is, Detroit Golf Club or whatever. These are courses where he can, club down, potentially not take driver out of his hand. And when we see Cameron Davis get hot, the guy gets hot, man. He knows how to outscore he will return his 7,200 value all the time. Like, as long as he makes the cut, he will have one of these rounds where he'll go low and he will outscore his finishing position. So definitely like Cam Davis in that low 7K range. I don't really have much other, many other thoughts here. Maybe some Marty Laird. He could get hot. Kurt Kitayama, I played him last week. I bet him last week. I like him. I don't know if this course really suits him that well. Some of the shots he hit last week were so ugly, man. Like, yeah, he was spraying the ball, which is going to get him in trouble this week. I see that Lucas Glover is 3 overall in your model. I don't really get that, so I'll let you kind of explain that to the people.
Yeah, so my model this week, my stat model, I because we don't have course history, the key stats that I looked at obviously were listed in the course fit slide, but those were adjusted for courses under 7,200 yards and for places where a premium was placed on accuracy, so where fairways were either average or difficult to hit, and that's why he rates out so well.
Where did Lucas Glover win last year? John Deere.
Yeah, which is a comp course for this as well. Yeah. TPC Deer Run is a comp course for this. So, I like Glover. It's funny because Cam Davis and Glover are 3-4 in the model, but I like them for very different reasons. Glover in terms of making the cut, and Cam Davis, to your point, as a potential to win the tournament.
Yep.
Yeah, so I love both guys. Brandon Steele was a guy who was a staple in lineups for me a year or two ago. He's kind of been a little bit off and on this year, but again, course fit, where he plays well, what he does, Steele rates out really, really well. And then Knox is another guy, right? Like we've been talking about Russell Knox at nauseum for weeks and weeks and weeks, and all of a sudden everybody's jumped off the Russell Knox bandwagon, and it's like, dude, this is a much better fit for him. This course lays out very, very well for Russell Knox. The other guy that was surprising to me was Grayson Sigg on this list, and the only reason why I bring it up is he rated so high in my model. So when I went and took a look just at kind of what he's done recently here and where he's had success, let me read off to you kind of where he's at. And again, I don't expect Grayson Sigg to win the tournament, but he's a guy who has made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cuts in a row. The only place he missed was at Honda. Prior to that, he made another 5 cuts in a row. So he's like 9 for his last 10 or 10 for his last 11. None of his finishes are really better than T25. But if you're talking about a guy at $7,000, and again, if you're going to be playing Rory and Connors or Connors and Fitz or some combination of a guy in the 10Ks and in the high 9s, you're going to have to play guys down here in the $7,000 range. And there's names that are way more popular. Laird, Hostler, Mac Hughes. All these guys are going to end up getting ownership because people recognize their names.
Yep.
Grayson Sigg actually rates out really, really well from a consistency standpoint. Do I think he's going to win the tournament? Probably not. Do I think he's going to finish T20? Probably not. But do I think he's going to make the cut? Yes, I think Grayson Sigg will make the cut this week.
Yeah. I don't actually know much about Grayson Sigg. Is he a bomber? Or like what is his specialty here? Is he tee to green guy or?
Yep. So if you look at what he's done here, the Mexico Open, tee to green, he gained 6 strokes tee to green.
Okay, yeah.
Prior to that, Valero, he barely gained tee to green, but he putted the lights out. Valspar, where he finished 48th, he gained 6.3 strokes putting. So there isn't anything that's like, oh, this is what he does real well. It's kind of all over the board. It looks like he's trying to figure out where he's at. But by and large, strokes gained tee to green, at least long term, is kind of where I would say I would classify him. He's very similar to Mark Hubbard in that respect, where you're kind of going to get him where he plays really well at certain courses. But again, the guy's been consistent. He's been making cuts. He's been finding ways to do it. He has rounds where he putts really, really well and, puts himself into contention. But obviously, he hasn't found himself like on the leaderboard on Sunday contending to win. But he also hasn't been a guy that's missed a lot of cuts here as of late. So I like Sigg if you're looking for a guy to make the cut lower here. And then the guy that's surprising to me that, again, I get it because he's missed a couple of cuts here since his win. But, Luke List at 7,100, I feel like that
seems very low. Yeah.
That's a pedigreed guy, man. You got him the same price as JT Poston and frickin', Taylor Moore and
Hostler.
Yeah. It's like,
He's way better than all those guys.
100%. He's so much better. So I will have quite a bit of Luke List as well too, just playing the narrative that List is going to strike the shit out of the ball.
I feel like that's a little bit of a misprice. I don't get it. Like, why is Luke List $700 cheaper than Doug Gim? Like, I don't get that at all. But
yeah.
Okay, but yeah, so yeah, you definitely talked me into some Grayson Sigg. Definitely talked me into some Luke List. I'm definitely going to go to those guys down here. We got another question here. Any love for Killer Keith off the T Mitchell on a roll this season with 4 top 50 finishes? I like Keith Mitchell usually, Mr. Waking Up, but he's super he's coming in super chalky in this range. Like, everyone seems to be gravitating towards him. So just from a DraftKings perspective, I probably fade him. And I really only like to play Keith Mitchell on Bermuda courses.
On Bermuda.
Yeah, that's his jam. So if anything, if I was going to try to get a piece of Keith Mitchell, it would either be like a live bet or maybe even like a pre-tournament bet, where I think he has potentially the upside to win the event, but he also has the potential to flame out and bust and miss the cut at a chalky number. So I'm going to be out on Keith Mitchell on DraftKings.
Yeah, it's interesting. We haven't seen Keith Mitchell for almost 2 months now. The last time we saw him was at the Players, and he played really well, T13 there. He hasn't missed a cut since the Farmers, which is not a good course fit for him, and it's on POA to your point. He always plays the Florida swing, but he played well at Pebble. He played well at the Phoenix Open. And like I said, Honda, again, it is a Bermuda course in terms of the greens. But, for me, that is a comp course in terms of it being shorter. You got to hit fairways, difficult to score. And, Killer Keith showed up there again. So I could see playing Keith Mitchell. Obviously, a lot of people like him. Rick mentioned how chalky he is. But for me, I'll probably end up staying away from Keith Mitchell. I'm going to avoid Mitchell and Streelman. Harmon's probably the only guy in that range that'll end up sprinkling in. Maybe some Matthew Neesmith, just because I'm a Neesmith true.
Yeah, I like
Neesmith.
Yeah, I like Neesmith too this week.
But again, I think if you can, to your point, if you can get over the mental hump of, okay, it's not on Bermuda, there's a lot to like with Keith Mitchell, and I think you just got to figure out from an ownership perspective if you're going to be chalky in some spots. Do you want to be chalky in the 7Ks? And for me, I always try to be not chalky in the 7Ks.
Yeah. He did miscut at the Zurich. Yeah, I don't really care about that event, man. It's a team event. not a big deal to me if you miss
Yeah,
the cut there.
it's so tough to gauge that. I mean, I guess what I would say with an event like the Zurich, I'm going to look at the positive, like if guys played well as a team and contended, and if they miss the cut, I'm just going to basically throw it out as an outlier. So yeah, I don't think that would change my opinion. His team missing the cut at the Zurich here a few weeks ago.
All right, let's get into the sixes.
All right, dropping down into the dumpster. There are a ton of names here. Not a lot to like, but there are a few high points here. Obviously, if you're talking fairways, Brian Stroud is the man. He hits almost as many fairways as my boy, who will probably be the most popular guy in the 6Ks, Ryan Armour. Going down a little bit further, Chase Seifert, who is, a career putter, and then ball striker. I don't want to say extraordinaire, but a guy who's known to be a decent ball striker and a terrible putter, Cam Piercy or Percy, is also rating out very well in the model. People are talking about, Kadira, James Sam Ryder. I think you'd be best to do lineup construction where you're going to avoid your exposure here. And I think this would probably be the one time that I would ever suggest this, that if, Stroud and Armour are chalky, I might eat that chalk just because the options down here, I don't know if I can go to a lot of other options here.
Yeah, you kind of took the names out of my mouth, man. I like Ryan Armour this week. I like Chase Seifert this week. Those are the guys that stick out to me. I'm just gonna blindly just close my eyes, and even though he's been hot garbage this year, I'm just going to take a stab with Sung Kang just because of his course history here.
Very popular this week.
Yeah, very popular this week. He has a 3rd place finish here and a 5th place finish here, the 2 years that for the Quicken loans. So even though he's been hot garbage, I'm just gonna close my eyes and sprinkle some Sung Kang. Now, Adam Svensson, he broke my heart last week. He was in my main lineup. He played like garbage. I feel like last week's event was not the right course for Svensson, and I should have realized that. I feel like this is a better course for him, like a short course where tee to green is more important. I think 6,900 might be a little bit too low of a price for somebody who we've been seeing play well this year. So I might have to swallow my pride here and go back to him a little bit. So I think the guys here for me are going to be Svensson, Ryan Armour, Chase Seifert, and Sung Kang. So, I mean, those are the guys up towards the top. Below that, it's a real crapshoot, man. There's just no one really that sticks out to me. We saw Andrew Novak play well last week, but I don't know. I don't really know much about him. We've seen Wes Bryan play all right recently, just not really a name that I would really want to go to. I don't know, man. I just don't have any names. I can't believe Charlie Hoffman is 6,400. This guy is like somebody that I would freaking love playing every single week last year. But for his skill level, that's way too low of a price. But he's just been so bad, I still can't play him. Bill Haas has been making cut after cut after cut.
He has, man.
I just can't go there. I'd rather go to Chase Seifert, someone with a little bit more upside. Do you have any names from down here? Kevin Chappell, maybe? I don't know.
Well, I mean, Chappell was one of those guys going into last week that I think a lot of people had earmarked, and then he withdrew from the tournament. I don't know why he withdrew, but he decided not to play. Maybe it's so he could come and play in this tournament. I don't know, but I could see giving Chappell an opportunity because I think a lot of people were going to end up playing him last week, and when he pulled out, I think a lot of folks were like, "Oh crap, that I wanted to play Kevin Chappell last week." So if you want to ride the form narrative, Chappell is a guy who has been playing pretty well. We saw some flashes from Matt Wallace. The problem with Matt Wallace is where he's terrible is off the tee, and you cannot be terrible off the tee at this place. That is going to be a massive detriment to him. Bryce Garnett plays really well at these short courses. He's an accuracy guy. So Garnett is another guy if you want to sprinkle some guys in. But I mean, realistically, what we're doing is just naming names. There's a lot here that we like. I mean, Brian Stroud, other than Ryan Armour, and everybody's going to talk about and play Ryan Armour. Brian Stroud is probably the guy. Stewart, however you want to say it, is probably the guy.
I think it's Stewart because the Stroud is Chris Stroud. That's the other guy.
Right, Chris Stroud. Yeah, he was. I always get Chris Stroud Brian Stewart and Chris Kirk, their names mixed up. I can't remember which one was the alcoholic and which one is terrible. Anyways, so yeah, Brian Stewart, I like a lot. He has good finishes at 2 of the comp courses that I mentioned, tournaments this year. So I like Stewart a lot. Vincent Whaley was a guy we all loved. He's just been god awful for the last 90 days, right? He's been terrible. But Whaley, I guess if you want to hope that he can recapture another name that's really similar to that is like Barjan, right? Remember when everybody was on Barjan for a while?
Yeah.
I don't know. Either one of those guys, you could get sentimental with Ben Martin, who came close here a few weeks ago to winning a tournament. But realistically, I think if you can stay above $6,500, you're going to have a much better opportunity. If you have to build lineups where you're dipping down in there, dude, it's a dart, and you can pick the narrative that you want to subscribe to because there's not a lot to like below 6,500.
Yeah, I'm not the lowest. I'm going to go 6,500. I think with Chase Seifert, Hankley Biota played pretty well last week. I could see going to him. Below 6,500, the only name that I could potentially play is Chesson Hadley, just because he had an 8th place finish here at the Quicken Loans a few years ago, but no one else besides that. There's this guy at the flat min 6,000, Brandon Matthews. The guy literally, he's longer than Bryson. The guy literally, his carry is like 330 or 340 off the tee. Wow. But that's all he can do. He can't do anything else. But he Monday queued and he's in the tournament now. Maybe he can drive it near the green on every hole and make birdie, but definitely not somebody that I will be laying any money on this week. Johnson Wagner, it's a name that I haven't heard in a long time, but he had what did he have? He had a 41st place finish. He has 2 made cuts here, 5th place finish and a 41st place finish the 2 years it was here. So 6,100 Johnson Wagner. I don't recommend it, but it's if you're looking for a bomb, maybe that's him. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys. Colin Tarrant is another guy that a lot of people were on because we saw him on camera get scared by an alligator, at the Zurich or wherever the hell it was. So, there are guys here that have had flashes. Schwartzel flashed at at the Masters, but there's just not a lot to like. And like I said, you would be hard pressed to find me down here playing any of the guys. If there's one name that I would throw out, and again, this is long-term ball striking, especially at a club down course, it's Henrik Norlander. Norlander is a guy who off the tee is typically very, very good. And when you get him with less than driver, he's phenomenal. So I think Norlander's probably the only guy that I'd be willing to go out on a limb with below $6,500 and play in more than 10% of my lineups.
Okay. I think that's enough of the dumpster for me.
I gotcha. All right. So let's get into the our bets for the week. Obviously, Rick, you mentioned your card. You're still building it and you'll post it out on Twitter. Yep. For me, I'm going to take the chance on Answer at 30-1. I love Woodland. We talked ad nauseum about him. The number's not great, but I like him at 28. I'm going to take a chance on Webb. Again, just looking at long-term form and where he performs. I like Sepp Straka. I'm going to hedge that with the T5, and I like Aaron Rai a lot. My favorite bets of the week are Cam Davis. I absolutely love Cam Davis. And oddly enough, I really, really like Troy Merritt this week. Those 2 guys, for some reason, I just have a lot of confidence in. I like the numbers. Obviously, I'm hedging them with some T5s and T10s just because after the pain of last week, basically having every one of my bets finish inside the top 10, I figured it'd probably be smart if I start hedging some of that a little bit. So I'll be doing that with most of the bombs that I have with this week. Do you have any early leans, Rick, with who you're looking at?
Definitely going to be Cam Young, Cam Davis, Luke List. Top of the board, I'm probably going to be pretty similar to you as far as Woodland goes. I like the Webb call. I like the Aaron Rai call. But I don't think I'm really going to bet anyone in that 10K range. If I was going to bet anyone, it would probably be Matt Fitzpatrick. But like I said, I'll put out my final card tomorrow once I do a little bit more research tonight. Yeah, I like your card, man. I like the fact that we're trying to hedge a little bit on these T5s and T10s because We just have been so bad at it recently as far as picking an outright winner. But this is going to be one of those weeks where you're going to hit that outright winner and not hit any T5s or T10s. So,
well, I would love it if
yeah,
I hit Cam Davis and I get the T5 and the outright. That would be fantastic. I would be through the moon. But after the pain of the last couple of weeks where we basically have just been peppering the top 20 of the leaderboard and not hitting a winner, I just was like, you know what? I'm going to double down on my budget this week, and I'm going to end up doing some hedges at T5s and T10s because I can't stand watching and thinking, I just need one of these guys to make a putt. Somebody hit a shot. Somebody do something. And so I got to get some hedges in place. I got to follow our boy Chris's lead and make sure that I'm at least backing myself up because I can't do what we did last week. I can't do it again.
Yeah. All right. Before we go, I want to tell you a really funny story real quick before we sign off. I went to this tournament, the Quicken Loans, a few years ago with my buddy Matt. And he was hooked up with some press credentials through this guy that he knows that worked on the radio or whatever. So he actually ended up getting these press credentials and pretended to be him or whatever. And we got into the media tent or whatever. Like this is like before like the afternoon wave was like teeing off or something. And we started drinking. We got pretty tipsy or whatever. And then we went out to the driving range. And he actually, because he had the press credentials, he was actually allowed to go onto the range where everyone was hitting balls. And he just went up and this was like, hey, just pretendly asking like questions. Now, this is the first time in my life that I've ever seen Tiger Woods in person. So this is the tournament that he played, the year that Francesco Molinari won. And my buddy goes straight up to him and like literally Tiger is just like practicing bunker shots. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm like drunk here. I'm like, what is he doing? Like, is he going to like get kicked out of here or something? He just yells like to Tiger and it's like, hey, Tiger, what do you think of pro players wearing pants? And Tiger, like stone cold, like stone face, just turns around to him and goes, what the F do you think I think about this tour players wearing pants? Of course I want to wear shorts. And then after that, my buddy just got out of there. Then we followed Tiger around a lot that day. But that was a funny story.
So yeah. It's funny because I've like you have attended my fair share of PGA Tour events. I'll actually be at the Byron Nelson next week, so I'll be in town for the show. We'll do this next week, and then I'll be at the Byron Nelson 3 out of the 4 days because I'll be in Dallas. But it's funny because for all of the hoopla and everything, it's probably one of the few places where fans have the most access to players for the longest period of time. And to your point, if you have credentials, nobody says anything to you. Yeah. There's been multiple times where I basically had credentials that got me into one specific area, but nobody checks badges. If you walk around, you have a hang tag on, they let you go and do whatever you want to do.
Whatever you want, yeah.
Yeah, it's That's a trip. Awesome. It is. It's fantastic. So I would
highly recommend. We got to get this show like a lot bigger so we can get some press credentials to the farmers.
I know. I'm hoping somebody tweets out press credentials for the Byron Nelson, and then I'll just pull the image down and I'll print my own credentials and walk right into the tournament.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, man. Let's get it this week. Let's get a winner.
Yeah, you know what, Rick? I'm feeling it. I think this is the week we get a winner. I think we're ready. We've been just dancing around it week after week, so I'm excited to see what happens this week. I like the field. I like the numbers, and I look forward to seeing your betting card. Remember, follow us on Twitter. We've got both of our handles right here. If you're interested and you want to get my model, Rick mentioned, those are the numbers, the overall rankings. Make sure that you either send me a direct message or shoot me a line on Twitter, or you can email me. My email is tonyaltieri@gmail. I'm not going to try and spell that. Mike will put it in the comments. So anybody that watches this after the fact, you can get my last name there. Happy to send it. And I may even post it out on Google Drive. I've been doing that occasionally where I just post a link to Google Drive. But let's get a winner this week, Rick. Appreciate it, brother. Have a good night. And thank you very much, producer Mike, and to Mr. Awaken Up. Appreciate all the questions and comments. Please like, follow, and share this. Get some more people out there. That'll do it for this week. Good luck, Rick, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yep. Let's go, Cam Young.